The time has come, the walrus said.
So today we're doing Sonic the Hedgehog on the Sega Master System, and I planned on doing it today. So I got the blue shirt that I had in the last Let's Play. I figured I'd make a tradition out of doing the blue shirt when I played Sonic games. And right after I have my lovely little dinner, out came the dinner into the toilet bowl. And of course the shirt wasn't exactly clean, so no shirt this time, but hey, I have this Sonic the Hedgehog jacket. That's appropriate. It's even got a little logo on it. I like it, so we're gonna go with that. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Sonic the Hedgehog on the Sega Master System. Now, I've played the original Sonic the Hedgehog, the Genesis one. This here is one that's available on the Sega Master System. It's a system that came out before the Genesis that Sega felt like capitalizing on the Sonic popularity with. Actually, the more popular version of this game is on the Sega Game Gear, a handheld system, but they're both essentially known as 8-bit Sonic because this is an 8-bit game. So, of course, it is a downgrade from the original Sonic the Hedgehog, that's a given. But I think it has some neat mechanics within it. For one, the game actually has some decent controls. You move pretty fast, you can gain momentum, holding down on slopes works just as you would expect, like so. Very nice. Oh wow, we just completely outsped the screen. So yeah, there's still speed in this game. The one thing I will mention though, well there's actually a couple things that are weaker. Of course the graphics aren't as good, but I don't really care about that. The two things though is that, you can't pick up your rings after you get hit. So that's kind of unfortunate. Also, there's some small nitpicks throughout the game that just overall make it not as good an experience as the first Sonic the Hedgehog. I still think that's one of the best 16-bit games, and it's not even as good as its sequels. But I still think this is a fun game. If you own a Game Gear or a Master System, I think this is a must-buy just because it's one of the best games for each of those systems. I don't mean to degrade any other games for the Game Gear or the Master System, it's just that this is one of the first ones I think of. Now, of course, we start out in Green Hill Zone here. This is new, we have some water. But the thing is, this game, it has some aspects from the first Sonic the Hedgehog. It's like a remake, kind of. Well, a demake because it's on the inferior hardware, but it has some aspects from the first Sonic the Hedgehog, but a lot of elements are completely different. For example, I don't think there's any loops, and we'll get to some of those other differences involving the zones. One of the main differences, for those of you who want to 100% the game, is that Chaos Emeralds are no longer obtained through bonus stages, or special stages after beating the level. They're just found randomly throughout the level. It can be Act 1, Act 2, maybe even Act 3, I don't think so though. You have to just find it, which is an interesting idea. I actually kind of like it. You know, normally you'd speed through the level, but for those of you who want to 100% it, you gotta kind of take your time. Although if you think about it, you're already kind of doing that when you go after special stages because you have to collect rings. And speaking of special stages, they're still in this game. Once again, you gotta beat the level and have 50 rings. Look at that, very nice, Sonic. And as soon as we pass that goalpost, there's no giant ring. We just get the special stage, which you can tell we get from this exclamation point. So the special stages in this game are just meant to obtain rings and potentially lives, as well as some continues. Because just like the first Sonic, we do have limited lives and there are game overs. I do kind of like, though, that the special stages are more of an optional kind of thing. Just because before it was like, oh, what's so special about it? You're forced to do every single one in order to just, you know, beat the game. But here it's more like, hey, you're just free to jump about, collect some rings, increase your score, that sort of thing. I didn't actually get the continue there, which is a bit unfortunate. Hopefully everything goes well in this Let's Play. Now we have Green Hill Act 3, just like the first game we got 3 acts, although unlike the first game, the third act is mainly just the boss. There's no rings, no enemies, no power-ups, just a few jumps. The first boss is pretty easy. We're unable to hit him right now. Is it Robotnik once again, or Eggman? He'll just go back and forth and can't hit him, but eventually he'll lower himself where we can hit him. I don't know why he does. He could just drop bombs on us from here and we never beat him. But eventually, once he reaches the bottom, he'll rocket across, and he does get a hitbox there, so you gotta be careful. Now, some of you may wonder why I'm playing the Master System version. After all, the Game Gear was a newer system, so a lot more people played this version back in the day. But I just think the Master System overall has a better design. Of course, because it's on a TV, not a handheld system, the screen is much larger, you can see more of what's ahead of you, and I need that in a Sonic the Hedgehog game. If I ever get around to 8-bit Sonic 2, I'm gonna need to play the Master System version, because the 8-bit one is just, it's ridiculous. And we're on on to Bridge Zone. I was going to mention earlier, but yeah, this game doesn't have all the zones from the first Sonic the Hedgehog, just about half of them. And in addition to that, we have 3 more original zones, one of which is here, a Bridge Zone. This level's got a nice track and a decently nice aesthetic we got here. Some bridges, some grass, some hills, all that good stuff. The Chaos Emerald is in this act. Oh, by the way, that little down arrow was actually a checkpoint. They don't look like the posts they did in Sonic the Hedgehog on the Genesis. We've actually maintained the shield for quite a while. I don't know if maybe that's messing up how Sonic looks in the video. It probably is, which I apologize for that. Actually, if we go ahead and look down here, we can see that Chaos Emerald's there, which we gotta utilize these falling platforms to get to. Pretty simple. Now, one other thing to mention about the Game Gear version is that it is somewhat different in terms of the gameplay. Because the screen is smaller, Robotnik in that last fight and some other fights is much further down, and you're actually able to jump on him the entire fight, so it's kind of pathetic. And I think I'd like a bit more of a challenge. A fair challenge, that is. Oh boy, now here we have something that's unprecedented for Sonic. It's like never used again in the series unless you want to count the Wii games. And like, yeah, I don't know why they did this. It's an auto-scroller. I mean, yes, Mario 3 and Mario World had these at the time, so they were a popular thing in platformers, and among other games. But it really doesn't fit Sonic at all. I think I mentioned this in my Picross episode, but I was considering just going straight into Sonic the Hedgehog 2, just because I like that game a lot, and because I think it's appropriate to follow up Sonic 1 with Sonic 2. What are we doing Sonic 1 again for? But this is a relatively short game, so I think it's pretty harmless. And plus, something about it is pretty addicting. I'm a fan of Mario games, as you guys know, and the level design very much reminds me of something you'd see in a Mario game, you know. Much more simple platforming. There's not the loops or that I mentioned earlier. Those giant slopes from Green Hill Zone, they're practically gone for the rest of the game. There's no Starlight Zone in this game, so don't expect the massive speed you get there. But, you know, simple platforming has its merits. Actually, that's kind of unfortunate. In this game, unlike the first Sonic the Hedgehog, when you get an extra life, it resets your ring counter. I guess they didn't think of adding a 3rd digit. Plus, most levels don't actually have more than, like, a little over 100, maybe. But because of that, we didn't get the special stage, even though we had 105 rings, technically. On to the 3rd active Bridge Zone, which is, of course, the fight against Dr. Robotnik again. There he is on the map. I do like the little map they show, which wasn't in the first Sonic the Hedgehog. It gives you a better idea as to where we are. We're on this strange island with Eggman's robotics kind of interfering with it. Here we have the boss fight of Bridge Zone. Oh dear, there goes our shield. But anyway, the boss fight of Bridge Zone, he just pops up from one of 2 little pools, and then he shoots in whatever direction you're currently standing. So you generally want to just hit him, bait him out, and then move to another platform. Pretty simple. I mean, maybe this is different in some way in the Game Gear version. I don't play the Game Gear version as much when I go back to this one. It is kind of odd how the water that he's coming from is textured over our life count, so I don't know how many lives we have right now. Oh, well, I guess I'm about to find out. Okay, it looks like we have 5. That's fine. This is a pretty short game, like we're already 2 zones in, and I've only been recording for 12 minutes. There we go, we got him. Looks like he's poking out of the water with his mustache. And off he goes. On to the next zone.